Thank you so much, Irene. Hello, and thank you for having me today. As Irene said, I am the chair of the League of Women Voters of Warren and West Morris counties. And I am just going to jump right in and share my screen with everybody because there's a lot of information that we want to share with you this evening, and we want to get to all of it and hopefully have time for any questions at the end. We have found that if you do have a question, please type it in the chat box. This helps us all remember the questions that we had, and it will help us address questions at the end to make sure that we don't lose any questions. We want to make sure that everybody walks away from this well informed and ready to vote. So that being said, I'm going to share my screen. So welcome to our Vote by Mail 101 for the general election for 2020. So as Irene said, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that encourages people to be informed participants in our democracy. Nonpartisan means that we do not support one political party over another, nor do we support one candidate over another. As Irene said, we do take up a lot of advocacy issues regarding voting rights, social justice, environment, fiscal policy, and much more. But when we are doing voter education events and when we are doing voter registration events, we keep the advocacy separate. And that is really helpful when it comes to approaching voters because we understand that some voters would not like to declare a partisan stance. And we want to be able to reach out to as many people as possible. So this is just some information about some various leagues within our area. And of course, links to the League of Women Voters US website, as well as the League of Women Voters of New Jersey. Somebody asked at the tabling event at Chester Library, you know, does it matter who I vote for? Can I come talk to you? No, it doesn't matter. The League of Women Voters is for everybody and not just women. All right. So this material, the source for this presentation originated with a voting advocate toolkit that was put together by the League of Women Voters of Southern Monmouth County for the 2020 primary that happened in July. And we used it and adapted it to fit our own coverage area. And then we expanded and worked with the League of Women Voters of Morristown because we are a nearby league, and that is one of the things I appreciate about the league is our ability to work together and to share information across our respective groups. The information that you'll find in this presentation follows the governor's executive order. And a lot of the language that we use in this presentation comes either directly from the League of Women Voters of New Jersey or from the county election websites. When in doubt, check the county election websites. They are going to have the most up-to-date information, and they are going to be the ones working to keep that information flowing and to keep the misinformation at bay. The purpose of this presentation is so that everybody walks away feeling confident and ready to cast their ballot in this upcoming election. We'll go over some of the changes. We'll go through a few things a little bit faster on some slides because this is, I know, a very informed group, and so there were some things that you probably don't need as much expanding upon. But of course, automatic vote by mail for this election. If anybody isn't aware, there is online voter registration now for New Jersey. Polling locations are increasing. They are increasing for Morris County, as well as drop box locations. different ways to return your vote by mail ballots, and of course, no sample ballots for this election because you will be receiving your ballot in the mail prior to Election Day, and that serves as your sample ballot. Now, the county clerks have started posting sample ballots on their websites, so we can possibly even take a look at a Mount Olive ballot if we have time at the end. So where do we start? What we are encouraging every voter for this election is to make a plan. This is going to be so, so important when you're talking to anybody who is unsure of what to do. The first thing that we want people to do is to check their voter registration status. We want them to check their status and make sure they're active, and we also want them to register to vote if they haven't already. We also are encouraging folks to begin now learning about the candidates, learning about the amendments. There's going to be 3 that we're going to vote on for this election. We'll cover that in a little bit. And then return your ballot ASAP. We are encouraging everyone to say that the day they receive their ballot is their election day. So we have time to do our research. Of course, the League has been working fervently to get candidate forums on the calendar so that people can view those forums before they get their ballots. That is one thing that's really been a tough thing for the League to put together, because a lot of candidates have, you know, they're in session, they're still working. And so, you know, that's just one of those things. So there is going to have to be a fair amount of the voter taking some responsibility and learning about the candidates. And then return your ballot ASAP, and then track your ballot. We're encouraging voters to just be really proactive with this election. And that is our hope, is that we will give you the tools to be proactive. So check your voter registration status. We are recommending a couple of different ways to do that. Of course, you can go directly to the New Jersey Division of Elections website for their voter search. And then you could also call your Board of Elections office or your county clerk's office. We do want people to know that if you want to check your address and update that, you'll have to call your Board of Elections office. That won't be available on the voter search website. So just make sure that if you're, you know, making sure your address is correct, call your Board of Elections. And then, of course, online voter registration is now available. You can register to vote online. You can tell people that if they're interested in registering to vote online, what they will need is a valid New Jersey driver's license or a non-driver identification card issued by the Motor Vehicle Commission. And that's important because that is the information provided, the information you provide to the Motor Vehicle Commission is to validate your identification and to retrieve a copy of your digitized signature. And that comes into play when you would, in a normal election, go to the polling location and sign the poll book before you cast your ballot. Of course, that's going to be different for this election. You will have a certificate that you will be signing, and that is what they're going to use to check. They check against the signature on the certificate to ensure that that is your vote. And then if you don't have either of those available, you can use your social security number, but you will have to provide a digital signature. And if you are unable to do that, you will have to download a form and send it in. So that is another reason why in-person registration events are still important. We had one at the college and they were unable to do it online, so we gave them a form, they filled it out, and we sent it in. Okay. So this upcoming election, of course, we know this is a presidential election, but there are a lot of other local races, and the local elections have an impact. I'm sure I don't need to tell everybody here, but please don't forget about your local elections. You can, again, find specifics on those elections by visiting your county clerk's website or vote411.org. That's meant to be a one-stop place where you can find information about candidates and issues. And then, of course, the amendments on the ballot will be the property tax deduction, an exemption for peacetime veterans, legalizing marijuana. And the third one, which was not on the primary ballot, delays the state legislative redistricting process and the use of new districts if the census data is received after February 15th. We won't go too much into that. The league is making recommendations through their fair districts branch, and that focuses on the redistricting process and trying to make that a place for New Jersey to get fair representation in the state legislative, in the state legislature. All right. So who is getting a mail-in ballot? Every active registered voter will automatically receive a mail-in ballot for the November 3rd election. We are letting people know that if they haven't received a ballot by October 12th, call your county clerk. This is a question that comes up a lot when people hear active versus inactive. And an inactive voter is a voter whose previous election mail has been returned to the Board of Elections as undeliverable. These voters will not automatically receive a vote by mail ballot. There are a couple of different ways that this has been explained. And the best explanation that we found, and this was from a presentation given to the league by the New Jersey Division of Elections, during a normal election, sample ballots are sent to voters approximately 1 week prior to an election. And under election law, the United States Postal Service cannot forward those ballots. So if a voter's moved, the ballot is returned as undeliverable. And then when that happens, they update the voter's record from active to inactive. The system generates a confirmation notice, which is mailed to the voter, asking if they still reside at their address. And if they do not respond, they'll remain as an inactive voter. So an undeliverable sample ballot isn't the only manner in which a voter can become inactive, but it is one of the most common. So to return to active status, a voter must request a vote by mail ballot by submitting a vote by mail application or vote at a polling location using a provisional ballot. And I always like to say, don't let yourself become inactive. Just update your info and vote. So go ahead and make sure that you're, go ahead and check your registration and make sure you're active. All right. So the ballots, at the very latest, the deadline is October 5th. That is the deadline county clerks have been given to mail out the ballots. I believe there are some counties in New Jersey who have already mailed out their ballots. I believe Union County is one of them. And there are some ballots expected to be mailed out this week. But October 5th is that deadline. And I always like to tell people to check their trash or recycling. Just be aware, because we don't, we do a lot of our correspondence online now, and we're not getting a lot of really, I still get a lot of paper mail, but sometimes things can get lost, and this happened a couple of times in the primary. I had some folks calling me, I haven't received my ballot. I know I'm active, I know I'm registered, why haven't I gotten it? So after we had already gone through all of the reasons why they might not have gotten it, we finally discovered, let's just check the trash and recycling, and there it was amongst the newspapers. They had accidentally thrown it out. So we just like to make sure that people are aware that the ballots are going to be arriving between these dates, and so be on the lookout. And with that in mind, here is what some of the ballots look like. So we have Morris, Warren, Sussex, and Hunterdon. And the reason I am showing all of these is because all of the counties have different ballots. So when you get your ballot, we're asking everybody to just practice good citizenship. And prior to opening the envelope, check to make sure that it's your name on the label, as well as the correct address, municipality, and congressional district. And if there are any errors, do not open it and contact your county clerk. What comes inside of your ballot are a few things. You are going to get a ballot. You're going to get your envelope that looks like this on the outside. Inside, you will have an explanatory letter. You will have your ballot, and then you have 2 more envelopes. So if for any reason you have just something has happened to your ballot, it's been destroyed, and you've made an error possibly when you've been filling it out, then don't panic. A registered voter can obtain a replacement ballot, and if they haven't received it, if it's been destroyed, if spoiled or lost, a registered voter seeking a replacement ballot will ask the county clerk or municipal clerk to obtain such a ballot, and they'll have to sign a sworn statement that the ballot was destroyed, lost, or not received. And then they'll present that statement to the county clerk, and then that will, they'll have to do that prior to the time that the closing of polls for the election. So the county clerks will be keeping records of each replacement ballot sent out. So that's just something that we want to make people aware of. But by the time you're done with this, you won't make a mistake when you fill out your ballot, right? Okay, so how do I fill out my vote by mail ballot? So again, every ballot is going to look a little different. This is not a Morris County ballot. This is Ocean County. And the things that we want to make sure that people are aware of when they fill out their ballot: use pen. Do not use pencil or marker because they're scanned by a machine. And be very careful when you fill in the little circles. Do it as neatly as possible. Don't go outside the lines. This is right back to kindergarten. We are practicing filling out those circles neatly and filling them out completely. We also want to let people know that it's really important to pay attention to the number of options available. So if you vote for more than the allotted positions, then that vote won't be counted, because that will be an overvote, and so that vote won't count. So you need to make sure that you don't vote for more than the allotted amount of candidates. So for example, if the voter votes for 3 individuals when the ballot says vote for 2, then that vote is considered an overvote, and that vote for that office will not count. If your candidate of choice is pre-printed on the ballot, there's no need to handwrite the candidate's name in the personal choice section of the ballot. If you do that, the election scanners will read 2 names and cause an overvote, which means that vote won't count. And then, of course, look at both sides of the ballot, because some of them will be have front and back sides. So then, once you've completed your ballot and you've made your selections, you are going to fill out the certificate. So this is an example of a certificate, and you'll see at the very top there, do not tear off this flap. They are serious, and we are serious. Do not tear off that flap. It's really important when you get everything. It's going to look, you might get a little overwhelmed by the amount of it. Read the explainer letter completely, and just, and we'll go through this a little bit more, but don't tear off the flap. Read all the instructions carefully. And now let's take a closer look at the certificate, and we're going to talk about what to fill out and why it is so important that we get the certificate right. So this is a closer look at the certificate. And what you're going to do is you're going to print your name at the top there, and then you're going to fill out your address where you are registered to vote. And then you are going to sign. This signature must match the signature that's on file or on your mail-in ballot application. We tell people that signatures can change over time due to age, illness, injury. So if you possibly registered to vote when you were 18, good job. But it's been a while since that time has passed. We do encourage people to update their signatures. A lot of people are worried because they sometimes use that poll book when they go in to sign their signature. They'll look at their signature in the poll book and they'll see it there and they'll know, okay, this is how I usually sign my signature. So we are encouraging everybody to use their formal signature, not their grocery store relaxed signature. And then at the bottom there is if a person is providing you assistance. That assistance is actually writing on your ballot for you. If a person is just, they're saying, don't tear off the flap, now sign, that's fine. You don't need to fill that out. But if they are actually filling it out for you, then they need to fill out that bottom portion there. So why is the certificate so important? So of course it contains your residency information, and then of course the signature that is matched against your signature on file, and if you receive assistance. So the way the process works is the certificate stays on the envelope. We call it the certificate envelope. The ballot goes inside the certificate envelope, and that is sealed with the ballot inside. When the Board of Elections receives the certificate envelope and verifies the three things on it, your address, your signature, and if you received assistance, they then separate the certificate from the envelope. And then it means that once the envelope is opened without the certificate attached, then no identifying features are on the ballot. And so that keeps the vote completely anonymous. All right, so I just want to make sure there's so much information, and I am going to make sure in my notes that I have not left anything out. Okay. So how do you complete the mail-in ballot process? Again, you're going to put your ballot in the smaller certification envelope and seal it. Do not detach or damage the flap, which attaches the certificate. I think that's the third or fourth time I've said it, and I think repetition is a good thing. So once you've done that, you'll place that sealed envelope inside the larger mailing envelope, which is self-addressed and stamped and scanned upon receipt. There is a small section there you will see that is the bearer portion. So that is if somebody else other than you is handling your ballot. If you have somebody taking it even to the post office for you, they are considered a bearer, and they will need to fill out that section. There are a couple of things with regards to the bearer portion, and we will get to those in just a moment. So the reason that we are focusing on deadlines and the certificate is they are one of the most common reasons why ballots are rejected. So this graph came from votebymailnewjersey.org. So they put together this graph directly from the New Jersey Division of Elections. And this is from the 2020 primary election in New Jersey. So this is one of the reasons is the ballots were received after the polls were closed, and then of course the certificate missing. A lot of people are like, what is the other? The other is a lot of different things. A lot of it's just common voter error. So we are trying our best, and the state is also working hard to get information out and educate voters on how to execute their ballots. So, avoid rejection, be on time. Again, we'll say it again, don't wait. Your election day is the day that you receive your ballot. The postmark is important. Your ballot must be postmarked by November 3rd if the Board of Elections receives it by November 10th. Now, there have been some changes. There were 3 bills passed to help with some of the issues of signatures being rejected and ballots not being received on time. So again, you aren't going to wait until the last minute. You're going to get it in early. The ballots are going to start to be counted by October 24th in New Jersey. And the county clerks are actually urging people as well to send their ballots in as soon as possible so that they can kind of keep up with the flow. We want to be really helpful because it is a huge undertaking. They had a great response rate for the primary, and they are expecting another really high turnout. So we want to make sure that we're helping our county clerks and our Board of Elections by getting those things in as soon as possible. But if you are a procrastinator, or if you have just so much on your plate, which so many people do, and you wait until the last minute, we want everyone to know that if you go to the post office close to that election day deadline, you can ask them to postmark your ballot in person, and we would recommend doing that. And then, of course, one of the pieces of legislation passed was the Vote by Mail Education Bill. And the Vote by Mail Education Bill was passed to reduce rejections due to receiving ballots after the close of polls. So one of the things included is, of course, providing voter education and increasing the number of messengers and bearers from 3 to 5. So that bearer portion that we talked about on your mailing envelope, if you are, because we are living in a time of COVID, we are in a global pandemic. So a lot of people are still now living under one roof together, particularly college students, and people are, maybe you've got somebody who is, you know, a family member who's residing with you for whatever reason. They increased the number of bearers from 3 to 5. So if you are a family residing in the same household, you can bear up to 5 ballots for your family. Now, that doesn't mean that you get to add 3 more and bear 8. That is my understanding. It is a total of 5. So you can't bear 5 for your family and then go collect your neighbor's ballots and bear those 3. Total of 5. But that is just to help to help with that and help make it easier for people to get their ballots in. And then one of the other things that the vote by mail education bill did was remove the requirement of having a postmark on the ballot if it's received within 48 hours of the polls being closed. So if somebody sends it in the mail November 2nd and it doesn't get a postmark on it, and as long as they receive it within 48 hours of the polls closed, then that ballot will still get counted. All right. So again, avoid rejection. Check your certificate. Certificate, certificate, certificate. Don't forget to sign. Sign with your official signature, not your grocery store relaxed signature. Again, signatures change over time, so be sure you've updated your signature. And then one of the really important pieces of legislation, Irene, I believe, mentioned this at the beginning. For the primary, there was a lawsuit challenging the signature mismatch, and now it's been passed into law with the Ballot Cure Act. So what the Ballot Cure Act does is this Ballot Cure Act helps with the issue of signatures mismatching. And it requires the County Board of Elections to notify the voters of their temporary rejection within 24 hours. So when it's rejected, they will send a mailer. And then it allows up to 48 hours before the election is certified for that voter to provide a fix or a cure for that mail-in ballot. So there is some information that I want to convey about the Ballot Cure Act. And that is, hold on a second, I have to find it in my notes. Never mind. We'll get to questions at the end if we have any, and I'll probably find it. It's all, I had to change one of my slides, so it got a little mixed up. All right, so there's a lot of different ways that we can return our ballots. This is just a quick graphic from one of the organizations, Do Social Justice, that the League has been working with. And we are going to go through some of those options for returning your ballot. So one of the options is you can return your ballot in a drop box. One of the other pieces of legislation that was enacted was the Ballot Drop Boxes Act. And that requires a minimum of 10 secure ballot drop boxes per county. So that's based on the number of registered voters. I believe Morris County is getting 15. And those have been updated on the county clerk's website. Each drop box is under surveillance and emptied daily by 2 representatives from the Board of Elections, which includes both Democrats and Republicans. And if you, of course, touch somebody else's ballot, you are considered a bearer, so don't forget that. And then drop boxes are locked at 8 p.m. on election day. So that's something that is really important to remember. You will not be able to deposit your ballot after 8 p.m. on election day in a drop box. But again, you're not going to wait till the last minute. You're going to get it in on time. You can also return it in the mail. A lot of people have asked me, what would you recommend? Is the mail safe? Yes, the mail is safe. I still get time-sensitive material in the mail. I still get financial material in the mail that contains my personal information. And I do not want to say, do not use the mail, because there are some voters where the mail is going to be the best option for them to return their ballot. And I can't assume that they're going to be able to do a drop box or get to their polling location or get to their Board of Elections. So you can return it in the mail. You do not need extra postage. The postage is prepaid. The state is, of course, working with the Postal Service to ensure the ballots are processed in a timely manner. And again, there it is again, as long as it's postmarked on or before November 3rd and received by November 10th, it will be counted after Election Day. Ballots received prior to Election Day will begin to be counted by October 24th. Again, there's that postmark. Don't wait until the last minute, but if you do, ask them to do it in person. And it's still safe and easy and cost effective for you. You can also return your ballot to a polling location. This is something you weren't able to do in the primary, but you can do it for this election. What you will do is you will take your ballot, just you. You cannot use a bearer for this. You will return it directly to a poll worker and you will sign the poll book. Now, it's important for people to remember that these ballots will not begin to be counted until November 4th. At the earliest. And we just want to let people know that you might be faced with lines. Hopefully the education and outreach is far and wide enough that everybody understands what it's going to look like at a polling location, and so we won't have long lines, but it is better to try and avoid that. But of course, you are the voter. You need to do what you feel comfortable and safe with. Or you can return your ballot to your Board of Elections directly. But we do recommend you can return it up to Election Day, 8 p.m. on Election Day, but call to check their hours first, just to make sure. So, polling location info. Polling places may have longer lines, making it harder to practice safe social distancing. And if you want to vote in person, you can do so. But you're going to do it on a provisional ballot. And that is something that we are trying to make sure everybody is aware of, because the provisional ballot is a paper ballot. The provisional ballot looks exactly the same as your vote by mail ballot. So if you're going to fill out a provisional ballot, you will also have to sign verification paperwork. And then these provisional ballots will not be counted until November 11th. That's at the earliest. And the reason that is because they are checking against the ballots sent by mail or the drop boxes. So they are making sure that people cannot vote, that people, aren't going to go drop their ballot in a drop box or put it in the mail and then go to a polling location and try to vote on a provisional ballot. And if you try to do that, your vote's going to be rejected. So don't do that, because your vote matters. It counts. We want your vote to count. All provisional ballots that have been investigated and deemed eligible will be counted. If for any reason you're unable to complete a provisional ballot or a paper vote by mail ballot, you can vote at a polling place on Election Day on an ADA accessible machine. All right, so once you've submitted your ballot, follow up and track it. This is just another way we're encouraging people to be proactive. There's a couple of different ways you can do this. You can do it online with New Jersey Voter Public Access. What you'll do is you'll go to sign up for public access and link to set up your New Jersey Voter Information System account if you haven't already signed up. And then what you'll do is you'll enter your information as it's found on your voter registration file. And we have found that for this, the most successful way to do this is to use your voter ID. And that voter ID can actually be found on your mailing envelopes that you receive from the Board of Elections. So we have found this most effective. If you would like to find your voter ID, again, contact your county clerk or your board of elections if you want to ask them for your voter ID. You can try it with your driver's license or social security, but again, the voter ID does seem to work the best. And then you will, once you've successfully created an account, you'll be prompted to log in. You'll click mail-in ballot history, and the current election is listed first, and then you'll see a column that says ballot received date. If you aren't able to do this, call your board of elections, call your county clerk. That's what they are there for. They are happy to help. They have been, I've been speaking with the Warren County Clerk of New Jersey, and they are already, of Warren County, the Warren County Clerk, Holly Mackey, and they've already been fielding a lot of calls. Her staff is working really diligently to answer as many questions as possible. All right, so these are some really important dates that we just want to reiterate, because again, that deadline is what was so important to ballots being rejected in the primary. So October 5th is the deadline for the ballots to be mailed by the county clerks. The voter registration deadline is October 13th. So that is coming up. So make sure that you are still asking people if they're registered to vote. Ask them if you can help. And of course, there are links. You can send them to vote411.org, which will have links to all of the different sites where they can register for their state. So this deadline, October 23rd, the league is recommending that you, if you would like to, if you're updating your status from inactive to active, we're recommending that you, if you're going to apply by mail for a vote by mail ballot, get it into your clerks by October 23rd, because the deadline for them to send those out through the mail is October 27th. And we want to be sure that you get it in time to then mail it or put it in a Dropbox location or do whatever, return it however you feel fit. And then again, that's only if you're updating your status from inactive to active, because all active registered voters are already getting their vote by mail ballot. And then of course, November 3rd is the general election, and we want those ballots postmarked on or before that date. All right. So just a couple important things to remember. The highest reason for ballot rejection, ballots received after polls closed. Don't wait, get it in. That's the 5th time I've said it, maybe more. Be proactive, track your ballot, and all votes are counted unless there is an error. And overall, the national trend for vote by mail tampering is very low. Voting by mail is still safe and effective. Again, this is just vote411.org. This is through the League of Women Voters Education Fund. And don't forget to complete your census if you haven't already done so. We know that the census is really important, and we, I believe the deadline is September 30th, which is fast approaching. So be sure that you get that information in and encourage others who have not completed it to get it in. We were going to share this, of course, with, for anybody who's interested in links at the end. There's just some quick links at the end of this to the information cited, as well as additional resources that we used. There was a really wonderful presentation done by the Eagleton Institute of Politics at Rutgers University on vote by mail, and that is a really great resource. So I am going to stop my share so that I can see if there's any questions. And I